on your screen when mine goes red as well. Not happened yet. Oh, here we go.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so here we are. So I'll do a brief introduction, but essentially this is our Falls Buddy training webinar with Jude and with Lucy and with me, Keith. So we're going to run through the Falls Buddy training, which involves Lucy from a physio perspective, giving some advice and some information and working from the handout that you've got, which has some tips and some exercises and advice around mobility and balance and strength. And then we're moving on to Jude, who, again, with the handout that you've got, talks through some aspects of mindfulness and, again, tips and tricks around supporting people's confidence and managing anxiety through mindfulness techniques and an approach to that. So without further ado, I'm just going to share my screen a moment and remind us all of what we're doing here. So the Falls Buddy scheme for Blackmore Vale Partnership is something that's been up and running since the mid-end of 2021, and is volunteer led. So it's based on people like yourselves who are willing to provide time on the basis of an hour or so a week regularly, up to around about 8 weeks, so a couple of months, to provide weekly contact with someone who lives in the local area, who's one of our patients with the GP practice, but who has a risk of falling. And that is predominantly people who are older and possibly getting frailer and finding mobility more difficult, more challenging. But it can equally and does apply to people who are younger but have other reasons that their mobility or their balance is difficult for them, and they are at risk of falling if they haven't already experienced a fall. So this scheme is all about providing people with support that helps maintain their confidence and their independence. And as it says, and as you're well aware because you're watching this webinar, the training offers advice, two parts of advice. One specifically really about balance and strength in the physical sense of that, but equally strength, I would use the same word, and confidence in terms of your state of mind and mindfulness techniques that can help to manage and reduce anxiety. So if I can click the right place, I will bring us back to the screen rather than, there we go. And that's my cue to hand over to Lucy for the first part of the input around the physio side of things.
So hi, I'm Lucy, as Keith said, and I'm a physio, and just going to give you a few pointers as to sort of things that will help you with when you're working with your Falls Buddy, or the person that you've been sort of buddied up with. So the main thing is, you know, sort of when we're out and about, and if you're walking with them, be it inside in their home or outside, we want to try and get them to thinking about looking ahead. The big thing is everyone just looks straight down. We want them to look ahead and in front of them, so that they're not just looking at the floor and then they're not aware of where they are. They then bring their head too far forwards, shoulders come too far forwards, and we lose that balance. So it's really important to cue them to sort of just check the floor in front of them and then to look up and ahead in front of them. To stand up tall, not to think about this kind of slouching posture that often happens when they're sort of, you know, sort of a little bit nervous. So thinking about floating up, that balloon on the top of the head, so that they just sort of grow nice and tall. If they're not using a walking aid, but you think that possibly they should, you know, try and encourage them to use a walking aid. Try and make them, you know, to not get put off by using them. Often people get really sort of nervous. They're a little bit too proud. They think they're too old. But it is so much better for them to be using a walking aid, be it a walking stick, Nordic walking poles, crutches, a walking frame, sort of, it's much better for them to use that and have that little bit of extra confidence and be safer than being worried about sort of they not wanting to use it. And again, when you are out on a walk with them, even if it's just, sort of to the end of their garden and back, or it's outside somewhere, always remember that they've got to get back. So you don't sort of walk along and they're doing fine, and then you walk along a little bit further and they're doing fine, and then suddenly you've gone too far and they go, oh my goodness, I'm tired, I can't do it, or I'm nervous. So it's always remembering the distance, build it up gradually. Don't go for sort of a mega distance straight away. And if you have the plan that your plan is to walk to the end of the lane, even if they're feeling brilliant, you stick to that plan and you walk back again and then sort of see how it is. And then you go, okay, that was great. I'm now able to kind of progress this. But that's where things go wrong as well. And that's, and then people start losing their confidence again, because where they've, they had a plan, they went a little bit too far, get a little bit nervous, and then it sort of just sets us back. So stick to that plan. As far as exercising, so you'll have some sheets given to you, and there is video access as well to these exercises. They're ideas, they're general ideas so it's not, we don't have to stick to you have to do it 3 times a day, 10 times each. It's all about trying to make it a little bit fun, and then focus not being on the fact that they're doing exercises, that they don't realize that what they're doing is actually, sort of helping them, because a lot of these people are fed up of someone telling them to do 10 sit to stands and 12 knee extensions, etc. So it's just trying to gradually get them involved in it, encourage them. Little and often is, as we say, the best way to increase the strength and endurance. They're making it a little bit fun, and that they don't realize exactly what they're doing. Also reminding the person and yourselves to be adaptable. So don't worry if you go off kind of, sort of plan a little bit with the exercise. The exercises are a sort of a guideline. And if some people aren't able to sort of do exactly what we have, but you think, oh, but actually I could get them sitting and doing the same kind of exercise, or, sort of holding on to something differently or whatever. It's all about being adaptable. It doesn't have to sort of be set in stone that all of these exercises have to be done. If somebody doesn't connect with it, change it. No point forcing them to do something. It's all about, this is about kind of gaining people's confidence and working with them. So we're not trying to be sort of regimental about what they have to do. If some of the exercises can have some low-level weights that would be good to sort of introduce with it, that's again entirely up to you. We don't have to have proper weights. If they've got a little water bottle at home, if they've got a tin of beans, things like that are always really good, because again, that sort of just helps build up that strength and endurance. So, you could put a bag of rice on their knee when they're doing an extension. Just that little bit of extra resistance helps improve it. But you obviously build up to that. We don't go straight in with the weights. And another really key thing when they're doing all of these exercises, and you'll see in the pictures and in the little videos, posture is really key when we're thinking about it. So don't let them sort of be doing an exercise, and if we're doing one where they're taking the leg out to the side, we're not dropping the opposite shoulder. If they're taking the leg out behind them, they're not sort of throwing their chest forwards or throwing things backwards. We're trying to think about maintaining that good posture where we're keeping our shoulders, hips, obviously knees and ankles, depending on what we're doing with the lower limb, but we're keeping everything in sort of in line, and a floating posture. It shouldn't be a forced posture. So they should be, again, as I said, that balloon, thinking about sort of nice and just floating up, and it's not a forced movement. And that will really help them do the exercises properly. Okay. Then the other idea is sort of, as we said, it's all about trying to make it fun and sort of responsive for them. So if you're out and about and walking, try and introduce a couple of little challenges that are safe and that you're comfortable with. Don't ever put yourself in a situation where you're not feeling safe, but if you are and your buddy is feeling they can do it. Things like walking on grass rather than just on the pavement, stepping up and down, sort of off of the pavement a couple of times, trying to sort of just work into different areas. So as we said, like, you know, grass, gravel, curbed, you know, not curbed, paving zones, sort of, you know, just different environments. If we can, try and introduce a little bit of a hill, if that's okay. But again, anything that is, you know, sort of is okay for them and you feel they're ready for that little challenge. We don't introduce this on week 1. We're hoping that this is going to be an 8-week programme, so you've got things to build up to. Balance work, as we said, is really, really key. It's one of the most important things that can kind of, you know, sort of help somebody, especially if they are getting, you know, at risk of falls, have fallen, or just a little bit unstable on their feet. So you can get them doing balance work aside from the, you know, sort of some of the exercises obviously are working towards balance, but they can do this in all sorts of situations where they're cleaning their teeth. They can stand on one leg for, you know, half of it. They can switch over to the other side. They're waiting for the kettle to the boil. They're stirring a saucepan, or, you know, you can do little heel raises. You can stand, go up and down onto one foot to the other, you know, sort of all sorts of little things. If you're sat down and they're watching television, they can stand, do, you know, some sit to stands and, you know, balance work in between the advert breaks or something. There's always little opportunities where we can encourage them to do this. As said, it doesn't have to be complicated. It's simple stuff, but it's just all about encouraging their confidence and then therefore kind of helping them to sort of be able to go out and walk out and about without that sort of extra support. So it's all simple stuff, and there are some exercises. So you've got a sheet of, there's some standing, seated exercises and some standing balance work that you'll all have access to, and as I said, videos as well. Okay, so that's my bit done.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Lucy. So that's the body side of things covered. And then moving on to the mind. That's Jee's bit. If you're happy to take it from there, Jeet.
Sure. Hi. Thanks, Lucy. Lots of good tips there, and I think I shall be doing some heel raises and stepping when we've finished. We all know about the strong relationship there is between the body and the mind, and for someone at risk of falls, anxiety and panic in particular are really important elements, and lack of confidence, so that these can sometimes be more important even than the physical capability of beginning to increase someone's mobility. On the one hand, fear of falling can lead to less mobility and lots of physical impact of that, negative physical impact of that, but it can also lead people to stay at home, to be isolated, and actually get more anxious and depressed because of their reaction to the fear of falling. So it's important to think holistically and take both physical fitness and emotional state of mind into account, I think, when you're working with your body. And it may be that for some, they need to do a bit about getting a bit calmer before they even begin to move and do some of the exercises. For other people, it will be the other way around. I'm going to use techniques mainly from mindfulness, and there's quite a lot of evidence to show that mindfulness does help with lowering anxiety and of different kinds. There's not so much direct evidence about prevention of falls, but there's a good Canadian randomly controlled trial which does show that some short bursts of mindfulness during the day, 4 times a day, can actually make the gait better, so help people to be walking in a better way, and also to prevent falls in those who are at risk of medium to high risk of falls. So there is some evidence coming, but really the work hasn't been done. But I think we can all see how being worried, anxious, or preoccupied could increase the risk of falls. And sometimes, if people have had a fall, their mind triggers them into that fear response even before they begin to feel they're going to fall again. So even just standing up or somebody suggesting they walk across the room can trigger that sort of response. So thinking about how the mind and body work is important. And one of the things, you know, as a falls buddy you'll do is you'll be seeking to create that sort of calm, safe, stable, accepting relationship with people. And I hope that, you know, some of these mindfulness ideas will help in the development of that process. In this session, we just go through some very simple mindfulness practices. And I will say that I think it's good to do them yourselves and to demonstrate them, perhaps do them with your buddy, so it becomes more of a shared collaborative experience rather than instructing them or being different, because, you know, you might feel some benefit too, and it would be nice to sort of share that. There aren't really no contraindications to these. They're very mild. People should always do them within their capability. If anybody did feel overwhelmed in any way, then you would say, open your eyes, you know, come back to your breath, or just stand up, look about the room, and perhaps use one or two of the things I'm going to say at the end of the session as well. So the aim isn't to push through. I think this goes with what Lucy was saying. It's to stay within this window of tolerance at all times. So when we're stressed, we get, you know, this sort of cortisol and adrenaline are produced and flood our body, and they give us a lot of the classic symptoms of anxiety. And the aim of part of mindfulness is being in a relaxed state. This gives opportunities for the other feel-good hormones to flood in, the oxytocin, the endorphins, which help us to those anxiety feelings to go down. So relaxation is part of it. And we hope that it will also help people to be better aware of their surroundings, more focused, not doing 100 things at once, not flitting from one thing another. So generally more focused and aware, and more aware of how their mind and body work together. I mean, mindfulness in itself is a very simple thing. It's just about being in the moment. It's kind of very simply being in the moment, focusing on one thing, being calm and with whatever's going on at that particular moment, and in a way that's not judgmental to yourself. So that the other aim of all of this is to create a situation in people don't think they're failing or succeeding even, but this is just something that we're doing together. Okay, so let's just have a go at there are two little meditations I'm going to briefly do with you, and then just the principles of mindful movement, which I think will fit in very well with some of what Lucy's saying, and then one or two things sort of that you can do as you go out and about with people. Okay, so we're going to do a meditation now. We're going to do it sitting because I think that's the easiest thing to do as we are now. And it is quite important to pay a bit of attention to how you're sitting for this, because that can be helpful in terms of balance and awareness. So feet on the floor. And if someone can't put their feet on the floor, encourage them to have a cushion so that they've always got something under their feet. Sitting in a sort of, you know, as dignified a posture as possible. I was thinking of your balloon out of your head, and sometimes in mindfulness we think of a silver thread sort of pulling your head upwards, not in a strong way, but just a gently unfolding way. And rest hands on your lap. If your arms aren't long enough, use a cushion on your lap, put your hands on that. And then if it feels okay for you, close your eyes. But if it doesn't, you can just soften your gaze and look down. There are a few people who don't feel so happy doing that. And then just for a moment, feel where your body touches the seat of the chair and your feet on the floor, just those places that you touch the earth. And take a few breaths that are a little deeper than usual, with a focus on the out breath. And I sometimes like to sigh with my out breath. And as you're letting go of your out breath, just let go. I always think about it as resting in gravity, just not having to try sitting here, just let go. It's amazing how many times you can let a little bit further, a little bit further. Then after a few breaths, just let your breath breathe itself. Don't alter it. Just let it come back. It sometimes takes a breath or two to come back to its natural rhythm. And I'd invite you actually to put your hand on your belly at this point, because you can just feel sort of, it's not a big movement sometimes, but just a gentle movement, the rhythm of your breath, and that helps you to breathe a bit more deeply. Just get a sense of letting it do its own thing. Just follow now a breath as it comes in through your nose or your mouth. Fills your lungs and then out again. Just notice how each breath is different. You might even notice that your breath is probably slowing a little bit. Feeling the rhythm in your belly, and now bring your attention up and feel the way the front of your ribs expand on the in-breath and subside on the out-breath. Quite a big movement in the front of the body. Now take your attention to the sides of the ribs, and you may feel that they expand outwards a little. You're beginning to really get the full benefit of your breath. And then the ribs go right the way at the back of your body, so just feel those gently expanding also on the in-breath. Now feel the whole body breathing. And when you're ready, just open your eyes and let the practice go. So that's a very short, simple breathing anchor in which we use the breath as our home base to come back to focus on. And you might have felt your mind wandering a bit during that. And the invitation is to always come back to the breath rather than get carried away with the thoughts. And we'll do that in the next short meditation, which is using the body as an anchor. And this should also help with body awareness, because it's surprising how much of the body we don't think about very often. So again, settle in your seat. Feet on the floor, hands on your knees. Maybe just move your shoulder blades, if you can, very slightly together so you open up your chest, and just breathe. Again, don't alter the breath, just breathe. Get a sense of the expansion on the in-breath, and then the contraction on the out-breath. As you breathe out, just settle and rest in gravity a bit more than you were. I'm going to invite you to take your attention right down to your feet. That's a long way from your mind. And if during this practice you feel your thoughts are wandering away, you know how we can think of something and then we find we've made up lots of stories about it and so on. Just practice noticing. That's letting the thought float across the big sky of our minds and then come back to the part of the body that we're focusing on. That's a good practice for being able to calm ourselves when we're getting flustered and we need to be a bit calmer. So attention right down to your feet. You might just settle on them for a moment and just feel if there are any sensations there. I've got lots of sensations in my feet, but some people won't have much at all, and that's okay. That's how it is. Just notice. Perhaps you can notice the bottom of the feet, the top of the feet, and the toes. Might move the toes, see what that feels like. Then bring your attention through your ankles, your lower legs, and your upper legs. And if in your legs you feel any aching or discomfort, you could use your breath just to soften through it a bit, just soften the edges of the discomfort with your breath. Now we'll move round to the lower back. Just notice what's happening there, another place that we can hold a lot of tension. See if you can relax and soften a little in that area. Remember, if your mind's working hard, just let the thoughts float away. Come back to the lower back. And bring your attention up through your vertebra. Just try and just open the spaces between the vertebra if you can, just a little, not so it hurts, but just a little. Take your attention up to your shoulders. What's happening there? Is there some bit of tension you can work on? Perhaps hunching and loosening your shoulders, or a tiny little shoulder roll to loosen it up. Now take your attention down to the upper arm, the elbows, the lower arm, the wrists, and your hands. Are they soft or are they tense? If we're anxious, we're often clenching our fists. I like to just move them around a bit just to check that they're okay. And now bring your attention up through your arms and your shoulders to your neck. It's holding your very heavy head. So just check it's in a good balance, not stretching some of those muscles around. Your attention over your scalp to your forehead. Just try and let any wrinkles go, just release and relax. Soft cheeks, soft lips, and soft jaw. Just get a sense of your whole body sitting here. Your toes to the top of your head. Breathing. And then open your awareness. Open your eyes and just let the practice go. So that's the second. The third, I'm not really going to demonstrate. It's in your handout. But I just wanted to say a word about mindful movements. They're not Keep Fit and they're not physio. They're not designed for any specific purpose, but they're really almost like a meditation in action. So you're using the movement of the body to focus on rather than just a part of the body or the breath. And I've included this because actually some people find that much easier to focus their mind on than something more static. So I've included 3 different movements in the handout, one of which is just opening and closing the hand. Another is just pushing your foot along the floor and back again. And the third is just a gentle movement like this. And the important thing is that nobody does anything outside their easy capability. It might be a teeny movement, fine, that's absolutely fine. But that you help yourself and your Falls Buddy to do it in tune with your breath. So you don't change your breath, you put the movement to the breath. So it can be really quite slow, and you invite yourself and the person you're working with to really notice how each movement feels. And then when you stop the movement, actually how your body part feels after the movement. So that's where it is. It's in that awareness rather than in what the movement does. But you'll see that in your handout, and that's something you can do. Now, thinking, just to finish off, thinking about how things you could do. First of all, if people got very panicked or overwhelmed when they were out, maybe you were on the street and I can't go any further, or so on and so forth. You can do just some very simple things like breathe in for 4 and breathe out for 5, just maybe 4 or 5 times. So you're breathing out longer than you're breathing in, which helps regulate the breath much more, and also leads to, it has an effect on the vagus nerve and calms you down a bit. Just if they put a comforting hand somewhere, like on their belly or your heart, or give yourself a hug like that, and you accompany that with a bit of a, you're doing great, it's fine, we've come a long way already, look, maybe we're turning back now, but just settle yourself, and you did it, this is great. So because that sense of failure can also lead to sort of panic, self-judgment, we know all about that. Humming a tune, I'm not going to do that, you'll be pleased to know, but this is really good both for regulating breathing, it's a distraction, and it also, if you choose the right tune, it lifts your spirits a bit. So it's a really good thing if you're feeling a bit panicky. Just taking attention down to your feet on the floor, noticing pleasurable things around you, noticing 5 green things or 5 things that begin with B. Those sorts of things are very good for anchoring when a bit of a panic happens. And then finally, there are a few mindful things that you and your Falls Buddy could do during the day. This is all about practice. So all a bit like the piano, every little bit of practice you do is helpful. So spend time in nature. You can be sitting, you don't have to do anything else, but just stop what you're doing and look at the sky for a couple of minutes. Just that peace, that quiet, that space. Just when you're walking, that you can do that in a mindful way. Do an everyday activity more slowly, perhaps washing up. So you use all your senses, because, we want people to use their senses, don't we? So they don't fall down, so they're aware of anything. So you touch the bubbles, you smell the bubbles, you listen to the bubbles, you see how plates change as you wash them, and so all very, very slowly. Take a break before you need it. Just don't wait till you're exhausted or it's too much, because so many of us push ourselves through when it's not good. And when we're tired, we're more likely to have accidents and so on. Look after yourself in this. And we're very programmed towards the negative, which will include, I can't do it, I will fall, it's going to be awful, I'm never going to be able to do anything again or go out again, etc., etc. Notice some of the positive things that are around you all the time, like a sunset, a sunrise, a flower. So just do that. And you can even at the end of the day write down 5 wonderful things that have happened today, as long as you include one which is your achievement. So you're counterbalancing our own natural negativity. And slow down and do one thing at a time. You know, if you integrate that into your general life, it becomes easier when you're trying to walk to do that too, because I know certainly some of my friends who've fallen, it's often been when they're doing one thing but thinking of another at the same time. So the one thing at a time seems important. So that's all I have to say. Please do get in touch. At the end of the handout is my email. If you have any questions, if you want to know more about mindfulness, or even if you're interested in doing more of a course, please get in touch.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jude. So I think Lucy and I are both fully relaxed now, almost drifting off to sleep. Thanks to Jude. So that's it really. We hope that's given you, as you're watching this, a run through those handouts that you've got copies of, and a sort of a good introduction and overview of the both the physical and the mental approaches that we're keen. We know you're not physiotherapists, we know you're not psychotherapists or mindfulness experts, and we're not asking you to be, but any of the things that Lucy and Jude have run through this afternoon, that you can take into what you do as a Falls Buddy, will be really useful. And I think, as they both said, and I would echo it, the more we can do to share the experience as a Falls Buddy alongside the person you're supporting. So practicing what we preach is very important, to do the best we can as a Falls Buddy. So that's it. We'll leave it there. As Jude just said, there'll be lots more support, and we'll be available to follow this up in any way that we need to for you. If there are queries or questions, then we'll make sure we answer them for you. But thank you both very much. I'm going to hit stop, and that's the end of the session for now. Thank you very much.
Bye.